Welcome. This is the Resonate podcast with Aideen. I'm Aideen Riada, and my guest today, Jason Wendroff-Rawnicki, is a somatic grief therapist, keynote speaker, best-selling author, and certified yoga educator with over 20 years' experience in holistic wellness. After losing his sister in 1998, Jason discovered powerful body-based tools for healing, like breathwork, movement, and mindfulness that can help you navigate grief, reduce stress, and find resilience, purpose, and joy again. You're very welcome, Jason. Great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been excited to come and talk to you.
Yeah, me too. We're recently acquainted, and I'm really excited to find out more about your journey to this personal mission of yours to help people to navigate grief. And it all started with experiencing grief yourself when you lost your sister. Tell us a little bit about that time and why it changed everything for you so much.
Sure, absolutely. So it was 1998. I was 26 years old at the time. I was just a young man trying to find sort of my place in the world. And then all of a sudden, my sister, she died in a car accident. So one day she was here, the next day she wasn't. I didn't know how to handle that. I was not given the tools to deal with a loss like that. My family never talked about death. We really didn't have much conversation about it. And then it came out of the blue. And in addition, I was required to kind of bottle up all of my grief because I had to be strong for my parents. I had to be the rock that was going to be there to support my mom and my dad. At least that's what society told me I needed to do. So I took that on personally. And so I kind of, for a good couple of years, shut my grief off because, my parents needed me to be there for them. And in reality, I needed to figure out how to deal with it within myself. At that point, I was also going to school. I was going to be a clinical psychologist. That was my intention. I was studying therapy, traditional talk therapy, and I realized when this thing happened, that wasn't going to solve it for me. I knew why I was feeling like crap. I knew why I was doing the things I was doing. And so talking about it and processing it really wasn't going to, or even digging into the past was not going to solve the issue. I needed to find new ways, new solutions for me. And at that point, there were no resources for bereaved siblings, zero. There were no in-person, very few in-person groups. There were no books specifically on sibling loss. And even now there's a few and it's getting better, but it's still not, it's not a lot. And so I figured I had to deal with this on my own. I felt, at least at the time. So I really went in, I was practicing yoga, I was practicing mindfulness and meditation. And I was like, oh, this is actually working for me. And even when I brought the yoga practices and the mindful practices back to my psychology people, they were like, no, that is, that's something very different. That's not science-based. This goes back to 1998. Mm-hmm. So things have changed since then. But, they really dissuaded me from pursuing it further because psychology and yoga and meditation were on two ends of the spectrum. Wow. And there wasn't that bridge. And I said, but this is actually working for me. This is what's being successful for me. So how do I bridge that gap?
What is it you'd like to say to people? If there's someone who's suffering with grief right now, whether it's a sibling or someone else, what do you think they might need to hear to give them hope for the future?
Yeah. So the first thing is, no matter what form of grief you're dealing with, and it could be death-related losses, like the loss of a loved one, like a spouse or a sibling or a child or, a pet even. And it could also be non-death related losses too, because so many people, when they lose a job or they retire or go through a life transition, are experiencing the grief of maybe their old self or their old identity. And so we always have to work on shifting and changing that identity, but know that you're not alone, right? That's, I think, the thing with a lot of grieving people or people that have experienced loss. They go and they isolate themselves and they think that I'm the only one dealing with this thing. And that's just not true. One of the reasons why I decided to start sharing my story on podcasts like this is so that people can understand that you're not alone, that there's other people that are struggling with the same issues. And, and they could be very serious issues, but, there are other people dealing with them. And so really you got to find the right support system, like the right people to help you, the right group of friends. And knowing that you're not alone. That's really the key.
Is there any client that you've worked with that you'd feel comfortable sharing a little bit of their story, just to demonstrate the hope that people can have for the future?
Yes, let me just think. When I work with clients, I try to get them to kind of a lot of times the grief becomes their full identity, like that's all that they can see. Mm-hmm. And so when we work at putting the grief back into context with their life, then they have a real, it's very balancing, because then we're not just the grief. Can we be sad? Yes. Are there times that we're going to be sad? Absolutely. It doesn't matter how long you've been kind of dealing with your grief, but there's going to be waves and fluctuations. And a very important thing is the finding a compelling future. So finding something that is going to your passion, right? Like just like you do with finding your voice. That's kind of, I do something similar with my clients where we create a compelling future for themselves. And I have a client whose grandson died of suicide. And one of the things that she really is passionate about is suicide prevention. So she wound up talking in front of a group of people about suicide prevention and her grandson, so that this way she could tell his story and encourage not just people to be aware that people are dealing with these thoughts, these serious suicidal ideations, suicidal thoughts, and it's a common thing. It's becoming more common, unfortunately, but also he was an organ donor. And so she was able to speak out about her organ donation and get some people on that organ donation list. So so there's a lot of things that can happen through the process.
Yeah. You mentioned that you enjoy helping people with breath work and different practical strategies to move through that emotion at a practical level. Is there anything that you'd like to share with our listeners, something that they could try right now?
Yep, absolutely. So except if you're like operating heavy machinery or you're listening to this podcast in a car, well, we can do it even with that, right? So I'm a big fan of just deep breathing, but most people don't. People make it too complicated. They're like, oh, I have to do like a box breath and inhale a hold and exhale a hold. And I just think the simpler you make it, the better it is, because complexity is like the thief of execution. When we make things too complicated, we don't actually do them. But when we simplify things, then we're like, all right, that I can do. So if you want, you could bring a hand on the belly and a hand on the chest. And then I want you to breathe in and out through the nostrils. And then as you inhale, I want you to really feel your belly expand and your chest rise. And then as you exhale, just feel the chest release and the belly move back into the body. And then as you inhale, see if you can expand the belly and the chest so that your hands separate a little bit more. And then as you release, the hands come closer together. And just feel the body move as you breathe. Just take 2 more breaths and take a moment to even notice the effect that it has on your nervous system. And then after your next exhale, just kind of release the hands and just notice. Right? Our breath is free. It's with us all the time, right? You could do it eyes closed or eyes open, right? Like if you're in a meeting and things are getting stressful, just take a couple of deep breaths, just like we did. And that helps to reset the nervous system. It'll happen in an instant. And then you can kind of go through your days with a little bit more calm and a little bit more ease.
Beautiful.
Yeah. As I said, and keep it simple. Like if you make it to like, as I said, I know a lot of people that really complicate things a whole lot, and then it becomes difficult to do when we really need it.
Hmm. When you started working in this area, it wasn't that common for people to use these kinds of strategies for
No.
grief. Did you feel that, like what were the obstacles that you had to overcome in order to start using these strategies and kind of, empowering people in this way?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one is that nobody really talks about physical health and grief. And it's more than just movement, more than just breath work. And I look at it as the overall about health overall and getting our body into a state of vitality, which also means sleeping well, making sure that you are getting good quality sleep, because research is showing that sleep is actually possibly more important than diet and movement itself, because it's our body's ability to repair, right? It's getting on the right regimen of supplementations to make sure our body has the foundational nutrients that it needs to keep it running healthy and keep it running smoothly. So just talking about that in relationship to the emotions and the thoughts is what is definitely a challenge even still, because most people either talk about physical health or mental and emotional health, and now it's starting that bridge is starting to develop. But a lot of people still aren't making that connection between the two. So that, because if I don't have the right omegas, my brain doesn't have the right materials to feel happy and to feel excited and to feel joyful. And so I'm already starting from a depleted state. Tack on that, like my thoughts are going in a negative way, right? Like it all affects each other. And when you make a change in one area, it affects the other too.
So when you say
Right.
the
So,
omegas, you're talking about the omega-3 fatty acids that
mhm,
generally would
mhm.
come from fish oils.
Yep.
So
Yep.
do you
Yes.
recommend those? So
100%.
if we've got someone listening that's like dealing with grief or finding that they're going through a difficult time, what
Yep.
would you recommend for them in that regard?
So there's two, like so I've partnered with an essential oil company called doTERRA. Because they do a lot of research on their supplementation.
Mm-hmm.
And the two that I highly recommend, if there's only two supplements that I think are almost everybody should take, and take that with a grain of salt, because everybody, right, like I said earlier, if you say everyone, run the other direction, right? But I feel like a lot of people are depleted in a lot of their vitamins and minerals and greens. So there's a green supplement, a vitamin mineral green supplement, and an omega supplement it's a fish oil based. But having the good, like, not all supplements are created equal. So I know if I don't take my omegas, and specifically I talk about omegas because I think that's the important one for real brain health and emotional regulation. Because I notice a huge difference if I don't take them on a regular basis. Consistency with supplementation is important, because if you don't take them every day, then they're not going to be as effective.
Mm-hmm.
And making sure that they're not only bioavailable, but they stay in the body for as long as they can. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, what
yeah.
some
So
people might not realize about me is that I worked in health stores for 8 years, and I
mhm.
worked in fitness in gyms for an extra 4 years. But I did take fish oils, and I started back on them recently, because of menopause or perimenopause, that kind of
Mhm.
age, and skin changes. I used to love taking those fish oils. I worked, because I worked in a health store. This is like insider information. I must have been spending like 250 euros a month on just supplements, because I was trying everything. And so
Yep.
I stepped back from it all because it was too much. So I love that you're only recommending two things. Like, it's just so
Yep.
simple. So
Mhm.
for me, in the morning when I'm having my breakfast, that's when I take them. And that's what I would suggest people is, create a little habit, put it
Yep.
somewhere where you can see it, and take something, even something, at a small level regularly, is really very good.
Yeah, and just like as far as supplements go, depending on the supplement, if you're just if well, and it depends on the tech. There's new technologies coming out,
Yeah.
so if you're taking a lot of capsules aren't always bioavailable. Um, Depending on the capsule itself, it should be like a powder encapsulated, but I mean, I could talk another 45 minutes on just, supplementations, but not all supplements are created equal, as I said. And it doesn't make sense to take vitamins that you're not absorbing because it comes in and goes out. And for a lot of just over the counter supplements, they're just being excreted. And so I kind of joke around and say you'll have very expensive urine because if it's going in and going out and your body's not able to utilize it, then, that's a problem. And I know when I think I was in my early 30s and I started to get little brain gaps. Like when I was teaching a yoga class, I couldn't remember some words and I was getting a little bit nervous. And so I went to the doctor and the doctor was like, "Oh, you're just getting older." And I'm like, I'm 30 something. I wouldn't take that as an answer. So I did my own research and that's what brought me to omegas. And once I started taking the omegas that I'm on right now, the brain fog disappeared, the memory gaps disappeared, like it all just went away. And if for some reason the shipment comes in late or I don't take them for a couple of days, I can feel some of that stuff coming back. So there's no question in my mind that those omegas actually help my mental health for sure.
Mm-hmm. And to just acknowledge that our body is basically so important for our emotions and for
Yeah.
our thought processes, and they both go hand in hand. It's about being more holistic in our approach, really, isn't it?
Correct. And you have to look at all three, right? Like you have to look at your body, your heart, and your mind, and how they all interrelate, so that once your body gets healthier, then you could deal with your emotions more effectively. If your body gets weaker and less vital and you don't have those omegas and you don't have the micronutrients that you need to run smoothly, then the emotions go south.
Mm-hmm.
And it's harder to recalibrate yourself.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and
go ahead.
I'm a huge fan of rituals too, because we need to make sure that we have a good routine, a good morning routine, a good evening routine, because if you're starting the day from a peak state, from a state where you're going to like crush the day, that's one thing. If you're starting the day and just running and doing stuff and you're not prepping yourself for that day, you're going to let the day decide how you feel. And so we really need to be, especially when I work with clients, I put them in the driver's seat. We get them choices of how they want to feel, because we always think, oh, emotions come up. Yeah, they come up and we have to acknowledge and accept them. But then we have to make the choice. Is this how we want to feel, or do we want to feel something different? If the choice is I want to feel something different, then how do we make that happen?
So what's an example of a good morning routine?
So for me, as soon as I even before I put my feet on the floor, I start to notice how like what my thought process is like, and I start to infuse a good affirmation to myself. Like all I need is within me now, or what do I want to accomplish today? What does the universe have in store for me, so that I can take action on those things. So my mindset, even before my feet touch the floor, I'm working on my mindset. And then as soon as my feet touch the floor, I get on the floor and do like 100 push-ups just to get my body. It immediately gets my body activated. And then I'll, 4 to 5 days a week, I'll go out for a run or some sort of cardio exercise to get my body, get the endorphins going, to get myself, it really moving right away. And then I'll come back, I'll do it, maybe a 10-minute meditation, and then I'll have some breakfast. So that's generally, now I'm a little bit easy with it. Like, so even in the fall and in the winter, I'll do some cold dipping, which is like sitting in, I absolutely love it. So I have a little cold dip tub that I put outside on my porch, and I'll submerge myself in it for about 6 or 7 minutes. Usually the temperature is like 40 to 50 degrees and it's cold, But it gets my energy going. Or I'll take a cold shower at times, like in the summer, just to kind of wake myself up, get my body really going. So that's my personal one. And then with my breakfast, I have my vitamins and omegas, and then I'm ready to hit the day from a very empowered state.
This is amazing. I think that, okay, number one, we're really saying that that our emotions and dealing with grief is not just about our mind. It's about our body as well. And then when we talk about the body, we're talking about moving, we're talking about exercising, we're talking about eating well, about taking supplements, and allowing that to go hand in hand with that process.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
is there something that you'd like to say to the people listening right now before we start to wind things up? What's the words of wisdom, the little pearl that you want people to really remember from today?
Yeah. So I think it's because I started talking about simplicity, how we need to keep things simple. When you think about also progress, I want you to think of a 1% improvement. What's 1%? How can I be 1% better today than I was yesterday? And because that 1% will compound over time. At the end of the week, you'll be 7% better. At the end of the month, 30% better. At the end of 3 months, you're 90% better. So I want you to think in small increments, and don't try to get too out of hand, because I know when people make life changes, they're like, oh, I have to change this and that and clean my cabinets and eat healthy and exercise and move. And then that gets way too complicated. So just reel it on in, make one change. What's like one change that I can make today that will make a difference that I can do consistently.
Mm-hmm. And it could start with that breath, right?
Correct.
Just
Yes.
doing that one breath exercise, one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly, and just
Yep.
be aware of your breathing for a couple of minutes every day.
Yeah, doesn't even have to be. It could. They always say 1 minute of something that you're gonna do is better than 30 minutes of something you're not gonna do. So
Yeah.
so when they say meditate, if you can't meditate for 30 minutes, do it for 10 seconds, right? Do it for 20 seconds. And because what we want to do is we want to take motivation out of the way and bring in habit. Because when we're motivated, some days we're motivated, some days we're not. Some days I'm feeling great, some days I'm not. And so if you're relying on motivation, then when you're not feeling like doing something, you won't do it. If you build it as a habit, then you're going to do it no matter what.
Mm-hmm. Building habits is a fascinating topic even in itself. I know I have a couple of things that I do to help me to create a new habit. Do you have any little tip on how to create a new habit?
Yes. So one, back to keep it simple, right? Like, so what is the one step that you need to do, right? So for me, I don't always love, like every morning, I don't feel like I want to run, but it's such a habit now that all I have to do is convince myself to put my running shoes on. If I can get my running shoes on, my body's going out the door. I think there's only once in maybe 8 years that I got my running shoes on and didn't go out the door. So find out what that first habit is. If it's, you don't like flossing your teeth, right? Just take the floss out of the cabinet, right? Like just get into the habit of that. And then once the floss comes out, then, like do that for a week and then floss one tooth, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so that you can build it up. So, but, before you know it, you're going to be doing, you're going to be doing the whole thing. But just find that one, like, what's the one thing that's not scary that you can do every day?
Well, I'm so glad that you took this journey, and I'm glad that we had this time together. Thank you for joining me on the Resonate podcast. I will be adding your links to our show notes so that people can find you. Is there anything specific that you'd like people to look for of yours to learn more about you?
So the best way is to go to my website, www.somaticgrieftherapy.com, because there's a copy. You can download a copy of the keynote speech I did in New Orleans for a grief conference, and it's really about how to create that sustainable change, and how we need immersion, and we need consistent repetition. Because if we don't make it habits through the consistent repetition, then we can read all the things, we can get all the knowledge, but knowledge is only potential power. It's when we take action on it that it really becomes powerful. So, finding simple ways of taking small actions.
Love it. Thank you so much, Jason, for being here with us today. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you again at the next episode of the Resonate podcast with Aideen.